Hey y'all, welcome back to another ASOTU Edge webinar. Today we are here for part two of a two-part series with our friends at Stream Companies. Today we're going to be talking about building your 2025 advertising strategy. We are going to be joined by Kyle Mountseer with ASOTU. We're also going to have with us Sarah West. She is the Vice President of Integrated Media, and Drew Diehl. He is the Vice President of Digital Marketing for Stream Companies. So we're actually going to do a little bit of a recap, take a look back at what we talked about last time. So why don't we go ahead and get into it?
When we're evaluating and looking back over this year, we have to look at things as us as a group. Has our website changed? Has our technology changed? Where has our budget gone? What are the factors and things that could have affected our results as an organization? Has there been something that impacted us from selling the way that we need to? So zooming out is the art of pulling yourself back layer by layer, so you're not making decisions in silos and you're making it for the larger business as a whole.
We talk a lot about input and output metrics, and the input metrics are more things that you can control. It's actually something that Amazon is very big on. It's not, hey, can I drive more clicks? Can I get more conversions? It's what leads to you doing that, and whether it's in SEO and producing more content or having like a really robust ad strategy, it's honing in on, really what are those things that you can control throughout the year that then drive clicks, conversions, sales, etc.
When we make those larger scale strategies and stick to them, there's a much easier way to evaluate than, oh, leads aren't in, so let's cut this thing and let's start that thing. We end up making these gut reactions that are actually harmful to the overall strategy for mapping it to a specific goal that we've already outlined of what we want that outcome to be, and then choosing those tactics accordingly.
So now we're ready to go for part two. Let's welcome in our guests. We're going to bring in Kyle, Sarah, and Drew. Take it off, y'all.
All right, we're after it. Sarah and Drew, y'all ready to get down to business?
Yes, part two. Let's do it.
I'm talking like I have my pen out. I have my paper, because I feel like I'm going to have to be writing to remember what you say so that we can ping back and forth, so that we can take care of this, 27 minutes that we have together, and make sure that we don't miss. I do want to mention, if you're watching the live stream, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're in the webinar, make sure if you have questions for myself, Sarah, Drew, drop them in the chat as we go along. We'll make sure and get to them at the end of our time here, or if they make a whole bunch of sense, we'll try and drop them in as we go. So do not miss out on your opportunity to ask those questions. Feel free. Let's get into it. So here's the first thing that I want to say is, we're only, 3-4 weeks out from 2025, and it's just a good reset time to say, okay, are we planning? Is it something that our dealership group is even interested in doing at an annual basis? And how do we set the ground rules? What are you seeing, Sarah? What are you seeing dealers with their partners, with you all, with each other? What are you seeing dealers actively do right now that is the first token takeaway that someone can say, I'm going to set this meeting, I'm going to set this intention for next year?
Yeah, I know we talked about in the last webinar, looking back on 2024 and, how can we even evaluate and benchmark ourselves? And it's making sure that we're setting goals now for next year. So with a lot of my dealers, we're talking about hey, what have we accomplished this past year, and how are we going to get ready for the upcoming year? One thing that I do with my team, so in my role as an integrated media VP, is I manage a team of SEO, paid search, social, and media. So we have all these channels working together to make sure that we can plan media across all these channels without fighting between them. So essentially what we do is we want to make sure that we are setting up a roadmap for the entire year and breaking it out quarterly so we can set those goals, so that we know as we're going through each month, each quarter of the year, we are focused on a single accomplishment that might have many A, B, C parts, but we want to make sure that we're really focused. So Q1, we're getting ready and resetting that foundation, and so that we can continue to build all throughout 2025. So it's really, right now is the time to be setting those plans so that your 2025 goes smooth. And if there is anything that comes up in the market, you're ready to pivot as quickly as possible.
Drew, talking specifically to what's coming up in the market, a lot of marketing has to do with external influences, right? It's not just, what's happening with your inventory or with your service availability or with your marketing channels. There are external influences, and we're starting to see some of them creep up. Can you speak to some of the things that dealers might want to be aware of as they're planning for 2025 that we either know are going to change or we're assuming may change that will impact marketing?
Yeah, there's some heavy hitters. If you've heard of Google or Meta, there's some pretty big companies, and there's a lot of stuff that has happened in 2024 that is going to massively impact 2025. Specifically in the Google lawsuit, the decision is still, there hasn't been actual outcomes that have been announced yet, but we're seeing a lot of talk about potential splits between Google and Chrome. And as I'm speaking, it's the antitrust law. So a lot of stuff could come out of that. And obviously, Google is typically the biggest line item in an advertising budget. So if things change from an advertising standpoint, that's going to be massive. And then from a Meta standpoint, this is something we've been talking with our reps about. But they've announced the changes to how audience targeting will happen in platform. So specifically, there won't be the ability to share custom audiences in certain ad categories. And automotive is one of those. So automotive is a special ad category, meaning that your ability to target and some of the restrictions that gets placed on your advertising will be limited. So obviously, for those dealers who have this shared audience strategy across the board, we need to pivot and understand what that means. And if we need to change where we're serving ads because we can no longer target the people or guarantee that we're targeting the people that we want.
Can you explain, go a little bit more deep on what a shared audience is? Because I think a lot of people are leveraging agencies or tech to kind of build their audience strategies and their ad strategies across digital. What exactly is that when it comes to Meta? What are these custom shared audiences?
Yeah, so in Meta, you have these native audiences, and some of the previous privacy legislation that came down on Meta really limited how detailed you could get within native audiences. So a lot of agencies and dealerships have gone to third parties. I mean, previously Oracle, before they stopped sharing audiences, was a massive one, to get more granular in auto intenders or specific makes and models. And so that ability to really hone in on those more specific SUV or used cars under 40K or used auto intenders under 40K or something really specific from a behavioral or demographic standpoint from third-party audience providers. That's what we're talking about when we're saying shared custom audiences.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the other key updates to that's interesting to me is that, we kind of let logins run rampant when it comes to auto logins, specifically with marketing. And maybe people aren't logging, they haven't set up their business manager with their business contact and that specific email. And that's going to have a massive impact on whether or not audiences can even be utilized when they are uploaded, correct?
Yeah, 100%. And it's something we've dealt with internally of, you have a login to Screaming Frog that every single person on the SEO team handles. And I think a lot of companies are going away from that. I guess it's maybe the Netflix model where that shared login aspect is not going to be used for a lot of technology companies.
Yeah, exactly. We brought up AI a bit on our previous webinar, Sarah, and I think as people are starting to tune their minds, there's a lot more content coming out around it, not just from like what SaaS company am I using that is utilizing AI, but how am I utilizing that personally for business? How do you see and what should dealers be looking out for, but also excited about when it comes to planning on the utilization of AI tools within their marketing planning or marketing content? And how should they be kind of like, what are the watch outs and what are the exciting parts?
Yeah, I think some of the exciting parts is being able to better analyze data in larger sets. So whether that just be, audience data on your website, or maybe it's, how are your campaigns performing across a massive dealer group? You want to be able to use artificial intelligence to help find better data to give you better decision making in business. So that's one of the exciting bits. One of the things that I always want to make sure that people are careful of with AI is things like ChatGPT can be so quick and easy, but things like Google, they're still with their core algorithm updates looking for useful human content. So we need to keep writing content for humans and then have a human touch in that content as well. As easy as it is to go to ChatGPT and say, write me a piece of content about my dealership and get it posted on your website, that's not going to give you the results that you're looking for.
Yeah, I see that as a danger, especially as people kind of like tiptoe into the thing. You get that first response back and you're like, wow, that's better than I would do. And you just ship it. And that's not the best, it's like, oh, write me some ad copy. That's great. Probably not the right thing to ship. I think it's a content initiator, but now maybe not a content finalizer. And so that's a great lookout. Earlier you were speaking to, you kind of like gave this broad overview of like all the channels that you should be working on, the roadmap, whether or not you're looking at quarterly or monthly targets and goals and strategies or yearly, annual things like that. When people are looking at the channels that they're placing media or delivering ads, how should they be looking at like specific channels, specifically on the digital side, and starting to plan and budget toward those channels, and maybe even like where are some missed channels that people aren't prioritizing in their conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just looking from like a holistic integrated media perspective, taking a look back at 2024, and something that I like to do with dealers is doing like sales by zip analysis. Like, where have we been selling in 2024 where we can maybe pivot strategy for 2025? So first, looking at physically where we are targeting our media is really important. Maybe there's certain areas that we can see in like pump in and pump out data where you're losing out to a competitor in your own backyard. We need to put more focus there using certain channels and building a strategy around that. So that's one thing. Another thing we can look at too is your website traffic. So taking a look, hopefully it's grown year over year, but if you've had a lot of national ranking SEO content with AI overviews stepping into the realm of the universe in Google this year, and more core algorithm updates, one just finished yesterday, that's really going to be important for making sure that your strategy is still working for the traffic that's on your site. So reevaluating your budgets and really, diving in, does this budget work for me? What are my sales goals for next year? What PRU do we want to aim for when we're looking at our advertising budget across all channels, not even just your advertising agency, your third parties that you're invested in as well. So I think really just making sure that you are spending your budget in the right places for what your goals are in 2025.
Yeah, Drew, you're kind of a visionary and you're always looking at what's next. What's next maybe in 2008 to 2012 was like, hey, look, we finally have this internet. We're going to be able to attribute everything back to $1 spent equals $1 sold, right? And we're starting to realize more and more that it's cross-channel attribution or multi-touch attribution, or even like location-based attribution. Like, where am I spending that results in the best ROI from like a group or a bit more of a macro set? When you're thinking about like how to determine the macro sets of data that are important to a broader media spend, what are those macro data points that the dealers should be looking at and starting to plan toward when they're not looking for just like next week's plan, but they're looking at next year's plan? Uh-oh, he's on mute. He done did it to himself.
So embarrassing, man. What a 2020 problem. But so many dealers spend so much time, and us as advertisers as well, spend so much time in Google Analytics. Because historically it's been so easy to draw. I mean, you said it, figure out when I spend $1, here's what I get out of it. But with some of the changes in GA4 and privacy legislation and cookie deprecation, I know it's not fully deprecated, but part of that, it's harder to understand the users that are coming to our site, where they're coming from and what channels are influencing that user. We can look and see direct attribution or last click or really any attribution model is going to miss major pieces of the customer journey. We had an example recently where with some of our technology, we're able to see the influence points of our advertising across a user. And we know that just because a user saw a display ad or a connected TV ad or clicked on a paid search ad and then bought a car doesn't mean that one of those channels caused them to buy the car. They didn't see an ad and immediately go purchase something. But all of those advertising channels and that messaging, they all influence the user to go purchase. So something I think that, at Stream, that's very different is we don't necessarily look at attribution in a vacuum. We're truly looking at influence channels because we know that all of our advertising works together to drive users to go purchase a car or go convert. I was talking to our chief creative officer recently, and he was saying that 5 to 7% of people are in market at once in America. That's it, which to me sounds. So how are we staying in front of those people who aren't in market when they eventually become in market and they start searching or start, looking to buy a car? How do we make sure they're going to choose our dealerships first?
Well, and I think about it like this, the industry average conversion rate to PII on a dealer website is around 0.8 plus or minus, depending on the time, right? So when you look at that, you're talking about 99.2% of users. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? How are they interacting with you? Where did they come from? What did they see first, right? Like all of those variables that we have forgotten even exist. Like what's their experience? How are they moving through the web journey or the digital journey? How am I attracting them back to the website or specifically the showroom? Dealers that I talk to mostly are, it ranges based on like the type of destination dealership or the location, but internet and phone sales can range anywhere from like 35 to 65% of the total retail volume of a store. Like you've got a whole other percentage that you've got to match a media mix to. You said that you're deriving that from like stats that you can see from users. Drew, give everybody a little bit of insight how we're actually garnishing that data these days. Cause I think 3, 4, 5 years ago, we didn't even recognize that was possible to map a journey like that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's CDP. You have to say CDP at least once during a webinar.
Got to do it.
Have to.
We said AI. We got CDP. Yeah, right. We got any more?
What's next? I muted myself. That's a classic one too.
Yeah, perfect. We did all the things for 20.
Yeah. So our technology, and we work with a company called Full Throttle that is able to match users to their household, and then we're able to understand when we can basically geofence that specific household with advertising, and deploy across Connect TV and display and quite a few other mediums. So then we can understand that when a household receives an impression from that piece of media, across display, Connect TV, whatever, search on the site, that's how, when they come to the site, we're able to match their household and resolve their identity. So then we know all of these specific advertising touch points across channels. And then if they go purchase, of course, we're going to have their address and their household as well through the DMS. So we can connect that data and very easily match back their entire consumer journey to say, here's, they clicked on a paid search ad 42 times before buying a car. Then they saw a display ad. Then they saw a CTV ad. Then they went through GBP, converted. Then they left for a month and then came back on a paid search ad and bought a car. And we can see that entire journey because we're able to understand, again, through AI and some proprietary technology, like how these users and how these channels are interacting with users at different touch points.
Yeah, I think what you're telling me here is like multi-level funnel marketing has to be happening, right? You have to go and brand build to build the top of the funnel, get broad scale reach at some level to have awareness, top of mind, be present, and then be able to catch in the middle of the funnel and track a user all the way through. I think, in the 2010s, we had a lot of OEMs kind of talking to us about like, hey, just in tier 3, catch the end of the funnel. But I don't think that that's a strategy that's going to work, especially as things get a lot more hyper localized with Google's desire for their way that they're prioritizing content and web traffic. Sarah, one of the interesting things that we're seeing, obviously the talk of the last 5 years is consolidation is hitting our industry at a rapid pace. And, Drew was mentioning that 5 to 7% of people are in market, and you've got this massive percentage of people that are looking at who am I going to do business with next? And as groups get larger, how are you seeing groups tackle this problem, maybe as a different problem than what we had when we had a lot more individual rooftops in the market?
Yeah, I think having a group and child site strategy is incredibly important, especially as there's more and more of this consolidation happening of dealers buying new dealerships. And with that, you can use your group site almost as your own third party. Make sure that you're using that as from like, if someone wants to come and look for a Mitsubishi, a Nissan, a BMW, if you have all those brands, they can go and look in one single place on your group site. So using the group site for more awareness, high funnel type marketing that we would typically, deploy at each individual rooftop, we can now do that in a more cost-effective way with the group. So we can spray a message to auto intenders that might not be in that market, not ready to, purchase, but then we can then use that same data going to the group site and retarget them on child sites. So using that entire data almost as an ecosystem as well is incredibly valuable, especially as there's more consolidation and purchasing of dealerships happening.
Well, and when Drew's talking about the CDP and relating every single click, every single journey on a website to a user's desire for purchase, and you look at a group website as compared to like maybe a store has 150, 200, 300 units on ground between new and used, a group may have anywhere from 1,000 to 8,000, depending on the group size, on their website, which means we can get a better click journey to see like, oh, this consumer went to 7 vehicles. 6 of those vehicles have a very, very similar thread. Now we can start to understand where we actually place the media, and we start to drive content based on that user's desired outcome. Have you seen currently this strategy start to balance out a little bit from like the spend and groups create efficiency out of that type of spend, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I have groups that have been doing this for years now. So using the group site to really focus some of those more general terms. So like from a paid search perspective, like used cars for sale near me. So competing with, maybe a third party, but you have your local name, you have your local branding, you have those why buys, people know you in the community personally. So it's a really great way to, get a very cost-effective way in getting that full funnel marketing using your group. The best way with this too is when you're having groups with like multiple of the same OEMs, it really helps too, because then you can work together to dominate a market rather than just driving up the cost with each other.
Yeah. Competing for that same customer in the market for sure. Mm-hmm. Drew, we'll get to this conversation. And I said before we got on this webinar that I could probably spend like 3 hours on this part of the conversation, but we do all the right work. We build a media mix model that understands our customer base, fills the funnel top to bottom. We're getting the customers, we're finding the right people who are in market, and building a funnel for people that maybe didn't know that they were in market or just about to be in market. And we get Google to point all the right signals. Our SEO game is dialed in. And then we land these people on a website, which is meant to drive them to action. But we've kind of left that out of the equation in a lot of places in our industry. Where you see dealers winning when it comes to rethinking about the content, the user flow, the click journeys, the structure of the website, and what should dealers be thinking about as almost preparation for a great media strategy?
Yeah, we really could talk about this for so long. But
you get me angry if you go too hard.
Okay, yeah, I'll ease off. But I think the biggest piece that I guess I see go right is keeping it simple. Like I've talked about this a lot recently, but when somebody comes to a website, what do they actually want? It's a really simple question. They want to explore what vehicles are available. They want to understand what kind of price points there are, and they want to be able to get in contact with you because they're interested in a car. That's basically it. I mean, you can say like, yeah, there's people that are doing research and having a blog and information about buying a car or understanding what a specific review of a vehicle might be, but keeping those kind of base level intentions and actions of when a user comes to a site, to me, makes it really easy to then craft each page of your website to allow people to go from landing page to the information they want with as little friction as possible. I think more specifically, making it really clear, especially on a homepage, what is the next desired action you want them to take. If it's go look at a vehicle, great. Only put the inventory CTAs up there. Don't put schedule service and finance application and value your trade and whatever else CTA you might have, because it's only going to distract people. So make it really easy. And the same thing on SRPs or VDPs on vehicle cards. You don't need 7 CTAs. You really, really, really don't. Especially if it's the same form and this, like, you're not tricking anybody. People are just going to say, why I click on the schedule test drive CTA, but I can't schedule a test drive. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Align that call to action with what is actually going to happen next, and you'll see so much more success. Users have become so accustomed to this type of shopping experience through something like Amazon, or everyone buys everything online now. They expect to have something similar when they buy a car. I know it's a different purchase and it involves much more consideration, but that online experience, everyone is used to doing that. It wants it to be so easy. And so when it's not easy, they're like, okay, I don't feel like doing this anymore. I'm going to go to a different site. I'm going to stop. I'm going to go look at TikTok or whatever other social media. They're not going to pay attention, and you've lost an engaged customer right away.
Yeah, I think when you look at like e-com, if e-com were to consume like 1%, 2%, 3% conversion rates, their businesses would die. And we haven't considered that in auto. It's about like a clear user journey that ends in like a clear call to action where the brain doesn't have to go through decision fatigue. We are the anxious generation. It's been called that. And that generation like spans multiple generations. And so decreasing anxiety and creating a clear path to conversion is as important in your digital showroom as it is in the physical showroom. Sarah, there's kind of a line of comments in the thread here, and being that you oversee these multiple outputs of media, you know, that the organic content side of things is something that we don't like to talk about a lot, because it doesn't a lot of times, back to our attribution conversation, have a direct line to attribution. But how are you seeing dealers plan and plan best to weave organic content strategies into their paid media strategies?
Yeah, so organic is incredibly valuable. If there's one channel to invest in that is so foundational, it's organic, whether it be organic SEO or social. They're very valuable. So the one thing that we have seen actually is dealer near content, which I know has been pretty controversial. You know, does Google still like dealer near content? Is it still worth it for us to be creating it? We have seen dealer near content reach an all-time high of search volume over the last 4 years. So not only is it still valuable, it's getting more and more important. So in our SEO, making sure that you're, first of all, planning on that long game. So building your SEO strategy on itself, but then also making sure that you have a local SEO strategy that is going to drive sales, not so much just national traffic. It might, like, if you want a really pretty vanity number and you want to see tens of thousands of users on your site with zero engagement, write how to change your key fob battery, and you're going to have awesome.
Done. You're in. Yeah.
You're gonna look amazing, but you're gonna be really mad when you're not selling any cars. So really focusing on those dealer near SEO content is incredibly valuable. It has been, and it still is.
That's awesome. Well, hey, look, we promised people we get them in and out of here in 30 minutes. I think we went through a litany of things, including hitting every acronym that we were supposed to if you're hosting a webinar about marketing. Drew, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. This has been insightful. Obviously, if people want to get a hold of you, they can go to streamcompanies.com, find out, connect with the team there, and also connect with you, I'm sure, on LinkedIn and you know, most people message back. I'm sure you guys will too. Yeah.
Of course. We're not that
Awesome.
popular.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Again, if you missed it, you can go back and check it out on our website. Go to ASOTU.com, click the button on media, and drop down to ASOTU Edge webinars. It's also going to be on our YouTube channel as well. Feel free to share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.